Good evening, folks. Very good evening to all of you. I hope my voice is audible, right? Please confirm that, everyone. Am I audible to you, people? Please confirm me, guys, whether you are able to hear me or not. Yes, yes, thank you. So, good evening, all once again. So, as coming to today's class, we are going to discuss something new that is coming under data configuration. Okay. So, we are going to discuss about the UA policies, UA actions, and data policies. Then, after, I'm also explaining you about one more type, that is field dependency. So today we are going to discuss four topics. So guys, before I'm going to start my explanation, whatever the doubts that you want to ask, you can ask me in the Q&A. And so I will wait for 5 to 10 more minutes so that everyone will join and everyone will listen the class at a time. Okay. So my voice is audible, right? It's clear for everyone. So guys, we will explain you about this all things later on. Okay. So as for now, no need to worry. Cola, you need to create one account, that is WebExer account, that will be explained in AMA sessions. Okay. So guys, I do wait for 5 to 6 more minutes because everyone are still joining in the class. So then after we will continue with the concepts that are UA policies, UA actions, data policies, as well as one more topic like field dependency. Okay. Yeah, very good evening, all of you guys. Once again, I hope my voice is audible to all. Please confirm that whether you are able to hear me or not. Yeah, meanwhile, some of you are asking some doubts. Let me clarify. So, is there any deadline for the certificate completion of the online exam for getting voucher? There is no exam actually. So, first, you need to complete three courses that are assigned for you. That is Welcome to ServiceNow, Micro Certification, and Fundamentals on Demand course. That is enough. And whereas coming to one more question, so how can so that will be explained in the AMA sessions, okay? Mani Deepak is asking something, the same question, okay? Mm, sir, for the that institute it's giving self-learning, not lead instructor. No, no, today is also a training program only. So the entire training dates are like 10 days, 10 days. Yeah, Durga Rao, if you open labs today, that is some issue that is going to happen in the now learning. So that's why you are not able to labs that are we are going to work on today. Okay, so even I'm not able to open the labs today to in the now learning. Okay, I have already kept the courses links in the Telegram group. If you can check that. That will be explained in the AMA sessions. Okay, now we are in the live sessions, right? So we haven't completed the concepts. So we will go with the concepts. Then after we will work on the AMA sessions. Let me share that link once again. Someone is asking about the Telegram group link. Yeah, everyone, my voice is audible, right? My voice is audible, right? Please confirm me and give the thumbs up in the chat box or send an emoji to me. Please, guys, because we need to start the topic also, right? So we don't go with the questions as usual. So we are going to with the topics. That is, we are going to discuss today how we are going to work on the UA policies as well as UA actions. Then after data policies, and we are also going to discuss one more thing that is about field dependency. How this field dependency is going to work and how we are going to create that in our instance. Yeah, guys. Even I have observed a lot of things in this particular today. So, as compared to today, there are a lot of issues in the now learning. So, most of your people are not able to open the instance. So, no problem, no problem. You can work on that tomorrow also. Okay. Yeah. So, let me recap the things that we have discussed yesterday. Then, after we can continue with the new topic, right? So, whereas coming to the yesterday's class, what we have discussed, guys? What we have discussed? We have discussed about the data integration and migration. So, in that we have discussed about the integration, right? We have discussed about the integration. That means we have gone through a concept called update set. So what is this major update set is going to work is like, so basically update set is update set is to change move the configurations from one instance to another instance. So yesterday we have performed that activity as well. We have did that, right? So also we have gone through one more thing, that are like how we are going to extract the configurations from one more instance. So we have two ways. One is using retrieve the update set, one more way is using directly update source. So by these two ways we can directly retrieve the configurations that we build. We can directly retrieve the configurations that we build in the first instance, right? So whereas coming to the first way, so that retrieving the update set, so we need to export the file, then we can import that file in the second instance. So whereas coming to the second way, we have an opportunity where we can directly connect our instance with the different instance, then after we can move the configurations that we created in the first instance. Okay, by click on the single button, that is retrieved update set. I think most of the people are still not joined yet. Mm, yeah, guys, please call your friends if they are in the class. Sorry, if they haven't joined in the class, please tell them to join the class so that we can continue with the topic that we are going to discuss today. Okay. So as coming to the yesterday's topic, we have discussed about the update set. In that particularly, we gone through a lot of things. In that particularly, we gone through a lot of things like how we can move our conversation from one instance to another instance. And then after we have discussed how we can retrieve that in the second instance. For that, we have two ways. One is retrieve update set, one more way is update source. So whereas coming to the first way, what we did, we used one link in the related list to download the file, and we go to the second instance and we use one method to retrieve the file that we are storing the configurations. Whereas coming to the second way, that is update source, in that we are going to use remote instance to connect our instance, that where we are going to build our configurations, to the second instance. So from the second instance, we can directly call the entire update set that are in the complete state in the first instance by clicking on the single button. Then after we can upload that, so we can move the changes that are made in the update set in the second instance. So as coming to the today's class, we are going to discuss about the data policies, UA policies, UA actions, then after field dependency. Okay. So before I'm going to explain that, let me ask you something. So is there any recording sessions? Yeah, definitely you can find the recording link in the Telegram group. One drive link has been shared after the session. You can check that. Yeah, I haven't shared the screen, guys. I haven't shared the screen. Let me share the screen. So whereas coming to the topics that we are going to discuss today, that are UA policies, UA actions, and data policies that are coming under that are coming under scripting part, guys, that are coming under scripting part. Okay, basically these are the basic things that we can use in the administrator without even writing any script in that particularly. Okay, so whereas coming to the UA policies, we can create UA policy without even adding any script in that. And whereas coming to the data policies also, we are going to create some data policies without including script in that. Okay, how we are going to implement that, we will do that in the instance. So firstly, these are the scripting concept that you need to know whenever you're working as a ServiceNow developer. Okay, so as coming to the administrator, we are going to include with UA policies, UA actions, and data policies, but we are not going to include any script in that. Okay, I'm not going to write any script in that, but I'm going to use some actions that are there in that to perform the activity directly. To perform the activity, I'm going to use the actions that are already predefined over there. Okay, but in that particular UA action, UA policy as data policy, we can write the code. We can write the code to perform the extra activities. Okay, so as coming to the UA policy, where it is going to work. Okay, and what are the major things that we can go for creating a UA policy. So here, these are the few policies that everyone should know as a administrator. So whereas coming to the UA policy, that helps us to make a fields read only, mandatory, or hidden on the form. That makes us to make a field read only, mandatory, or hidden on the form. On the form. Whereas coming to the data policy, that can enforce mandatory data on the form. That can enforce mandatory data on the form. Data policy can also enforce mandatory data on the input. That means, so whenever we are applying anything using UA policy, that may be a read only, that may be a mandatory, that may be our hidden. Okay, so if you are making any field on the particular table by using UA policy, so in that particular table, if I'm going to import any data in that particular table, if I'm going to import any data in that particular table, then what happens is like there is no restrictions for them. There is no restrictions, no area of stopping is there for the UA policy. Whatever the entering data that is there in from the Excel sheet, that will be directly imported to the table. It won't check for mandatory field, it won't check for read only field. Okay, but whereas coming to the data policy, whatever the data, that are coming from the Excel file, whatever the data that we are going to import into the table, that will be validated with the configuration. That will be validated with the configuration. Suppose if I'm making any field as mandatory field, if I'm not giving that data in the Excel. So here in the form, short description is the mandatory field, right? So in the Excel sheet that I'm going to push my data into the incident table, I'm not going to involve a short description column. I'm not going to involve a short description column. Then what happens is like it won't allow my data to be entered in the it won't allow my data to be entered into the system by using data policy. If I use data policy, then that will work like that. Okay. So whereas coming to the UI actions, UI actions can make save button visible on the form for appropriate users. So basically UI actions is completely on the coding side. UI actions is completely on the coding side, but we will learn how we can use that in the instance. Okay. So whereas coming to the UI actions, we can create something like buttons, links, rated links, and we can create something additionally on the context menu. Okay, so these are the additional things that we can create by using UI actions. So we can create buttons on how that particular button is going to work. That operation also we can mention in the code part of an UI action. Okay, so whereas coming to the other two things that are business rules and client scripts, that you will get to know in the app development. Okay, so whereas coming to the UA policy and UA policy actions, what are the major differences that you are going to observe while working on that? So whereas coming to the UA policy, basically UA policy helps us to make a fields mandatory or optional. Okay, and we can make a field hidden or visible, and we can make a field read only or editable. Okay, so these will apply to the global setting. This will apply to the only global setting. True. When if that is true, then only it will apply to the form. Okay. Whereas coming to the user interface of an UA policy, that will help us to dynamically change the information on the form on its own itself. Okay. So UA policy execution is always works on the client side. UA policy execution is always works on the client side. But whereas coming to the UA actions and data policies, that's sometime it do works as a client side, sometime it do works as a server side. But whereas coming to the data policy, that will always works on the server side. That will always works on the server side. That means backend. Okay. So whereas coming to the UA policies, that will always works on the front end. That means on the form or web or portal. Okay. So that's why we are going to use UA policies. If there is anything mandatory in that field also, it won't restrict us to enter the data into the table. Not on the form, whenever we are importing the data into the table. Okay. So whenever we are importing certain amount of data into our table, if we are using UA policy and making a field mandatory or read only, then it won't restrict us to enter the data if we are not choosing that field also. But whereas coming to the data policy, it do works as a server side, right? It do works for the server side. That means it will always check whatever the data that is going to enter into the table. So whereas coming to the UA policy actions, so that basically works for this only. So setting a field mandatory requires value in order to save the record. So if we make field mandatory, then what is the main thing that we need to do? So we need to fill the data in that particular field value. If you are not filling that, make sure that we are not going. So that ensures that we are not going to save the record. So whatever the mandatory fields that we have in the table, that is very important to save the record. That is very important to save the record. And whereas coming to the next things, setting a field hidden no longer displays a field on the form. Okay, that means if you make any field hidden, then we can't find that field. And one more thing we have, that is setting a field read only, that prevents user to upload any information on that particular field. Okay. So also one more question you people can ask is like, we can make this field mandatory, we can make this field read only, we can make this field hidden using config dictionary, using config dictionary or form designer or form builder also. We can directly make a field mandatory from there itself, right? But why we need to use UA policies instead of going that? Why we need to use UA policies instead of going that place? So basically UA policies works based on the condition. UA policies works based on the condition. But whereas coming to the config dictionary or form designer or form builder, we can directly make a field mandatory or field read only. But whereas coming to the UA policy, first we will specify the condition. Based on the condition, we will decide whether that particular field should be a mandatory field, or whether that particular field should be visible or not, or whether that particular field should be a read-only field. Based on the condition, we are going to operate that. Okay. So that's why we are going to work on the UA policy. So now if you go for the data policy, so before explaining this thing, guys, so let me go to the instance and let me show you how we are going to create UA policy in our instance. I hope everyone can see the instance. Please say yes as a response in the chat box. Please say yes as a response in the chat box. That is in the Q&A. Everyone can see, right? That's great. That's great. So now let me create one UA policy, and how I'm going to create that. Before creating that, what is the differences that you are going to observe? Okay. So I will first explain you how that is going to apply for the standard tables. Okay. So let me open the incident form first. Let me open the incident form first. Go to the all and search for incident. So click on create new, or let me open any existing record. Okay. So let me open any existing record so that I can easily show you how this particular conditional based configurations are going to apply for the record. Okay. So now let me open one record, that is the custom record that has been created by me. Okay. So guys, here if you observe, here if you observe, if I change my state, if I change my state from new to on hold, then automatically one more field is populated over here. Automatically, one more field is populated over here, and that is also a mandatory field. And that is also a mandatory field. So that means based on the condition, that means whenever we are moving our state from new to on hold or in progress to on hold, so whenever we are keeping our state to the on hold, then automatically one more extra field is going to be populated on the form, and that particular field is also a mandatory. We need to fill that particular field. Okay, we need to fill that particular field data to save the record. We need to fill that particular field data to save the record. So this is how we are going to work on the UA policies. So now let me create one UA policy for our custom tables. So what are the custom tables that we created, guys? The custom tables that we created. Let me go with the student form here. So now I'm in the student form, right? Now I'm in the student form. Now I'm in the student form. So I am going to mention one specific criteria. I'm going to mention one specific criteria. Based on that criteria only, that particular student should fill the details. Based on that criteria only, that particular student fill the details. Now let me remove this all fields, extra fields, guys, because these are the dot working fields, right? Let me remove these fields. Let me go to the form layout and let me remove the dot working fields. So now it will be simple to see the form very easily. Okay. So now the whatever the things that you are going to see here, whatever the things that you are going to see here are the fields for the student table, right? Or the fields for the student table. Here we have a specific called department. Here we have a specific field called department. So if I choose any department, if I choose department as CSE, then student should enter the student date of birth as well as student date of joining. I'm going to make these two particular fields mandatory fields. Okay, I'm going to make these two particular fields should be a mandatory fields whenever the student department is becoming CSE, and whenever the student department is going to be a MEC, whenever the student department is going to be a MEC, then these two particular fields, whatever the fields that I'm told now, just now, student department, if I change my student department as MEC, then student date of birth as well as date of joining should become a read only. Student date of birth as well as student date of joining should become a read only field. So how I am going to implement that in my instance? For that, I'm going to use a topic called UA actions. For that, I'm going to use a topic called UA actions. Let me go to the all. Here, let me search for UI actions. Okay, UI actions. Sorry. Let me search for UA policies. Let me search for UA policy. You can find these UA policies under UI, system UI. You can find this UA policies module under system UI. So let me click on system UI. This is the system UI application. Under that we have UA policies. Click on that. So now you can see there are almost 2000 plus UA actions or UA policies already performed in our instance. Now I'm going to create our own scenario. So our own scenario is very simple, right? Whenever the student department is CSE, then student should enter the date of birth as well as date of joining. That is a mandatory. As well as whenever the student is going to pick, the student department as MEC, then both the fields should be read-only fields. For that, I'm going to create UA policy. Let me click on new. So here it will ask for me to give the name of the UA policy. Let me mention the name. That is short description. Okay. So whatever the things that we are going to perform, that we need to mention in the short description, that will be loaded as name for that. Okay. So in which table we are going to work on? We are going to work on student table. Search for the student table now. U underscore student. Click on the student. Then I have to mention the short description as student department is CSC, make mandatory fields. Make mandatory fields. No, now I'm going to specify the condition, guys. Now I'm going to specify the condition here in the when to apply section. Now I'm going to specify the condition in one section, that is when to apply section. Thereafter, you all can see script also. If you want to apply any script in the UA policy, we can click on run script and we can write the script. So as for we are going to discuss for the admin concepts. So we are going to perform this activity using the admin concepts only. Okay. So now let me apply the filter here. For that, we need to search for the field called student department. Student department. If the student department is CSC, if the student department is CSC, then we need to perform one action. Whatever the fields that are we have, like student date of birth as well as student date of joining, that particular field should become mandatory field, right? So for that, I need to apply that in the related sections. I need to apply a one action, that is UA policy action. Okay, we are going to create UA policy action. To see that, first we need to save this particular condition. First we need to save this particular condition. Click on context menu, click on save. So after doing that, guys, you can see in the related list, I have two tabs. I have two extra tabs. One is using UA policy actions. One is using UA policy actions related to the section list, related to the list. One is for the form. So now I'm going to do that on the form, right? So that's why I'm going to use the first one. UA actions. I'm going to build now. Click on new. So what is the action that should be performed over here? That is one field, that is student date of birth. That particular field should become a mandatory. Let me do that. Select the field student date of birth. And here we have three things. We have three things that are mandatory, visible, read only. So I'm going to make this particular field as a mandatory. So click on the drop down and click on true. So it will make a field mandatory after applying this particular condition. That is student department is CSC. So we are not going to perform one action, right? We are not going to perform single action. So we are going to perform multiple actions. For that, I need to create one more UA policy action. So click on new and choose the field that is date of joining. So this particular field also becoming mandatory. That is our scenario. Click on true and click on submit. For our specific condition, like whenever department is CSC, we are going to specify two additional actions on our condition. So that's why we are going to use UA policy instead of directly making a field mandatory on the config dictionary. Okay. So now let me update this and let me show you how the result look like. Let me update this and let me show you how the result look like. For that, let me go for the student application. Sorry, student form. So that is there in the different applications also. Let me click on student form. So now guys, if you see for the student date of birth as well as date of joining, there is no mandatory field as for now. Now let me make this particular department as CSC. So whenever I'm changing my department, student department as CSC, then automatically two actions are going to perform on my specific condition, that are student date of birth should be a mandatory fields and student date of joining should be a mandatory field. Okay. So we have done with our one scenario. Now I'm going to do that for the second one also. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the second choice that we have, that is MEC. If I choose MEC, then this particular student date of joining should be read only, as well as date of birth should also be read only. Okay, now let me do that. For that also, I need to go to the UA policies. Let me search for UA policy. on the UA policies under system UI, click on it, leave this page. So after clicking on that specifically, we are going to create one more UA policy, guys. We are going to create one more UA policy because here the condition is going to change, right? Here the condition is going to change. For that, I'm clicking on the new button. I'm clicking on the new button. Let me select the table here. That is student table. We are working on the student table. Click on the student and specify the short description. What we are going to do that in that. So student department is MEC. Then MEC fields read only. Read only. So this is how I'm going to specify the description to identify what we are going to do in this UA policy. Okay. So here, as I said, my condition is that is student department should be MEC. Student department is MEC. So after giving the condition, what we need to do? We need to click on the context menu to save this particular condition to the database. Then after it will show the related sections to perform the actions based on the condition. Okay. So click on context menu, click on the save. Then I can prepare actions for this particular condition. So let me go down here. I can find one section in the related list that is UI policies actions. Click on that new and perform the actions. So let me select the fields. That are the two fields that we are working on. One is student date of birth. That particular field should be a read-only field whenever we are selecting the specific department as MEC. Click on submit. Then after I'm going to perform one more action on the date of joining field. Select date of joining here and perform the same operation. That is read only should be true. Click on submit. Okay. So after applying these two actions, what we need to do? We need to update the form. Whenever we are doing any configurations or whenever we are doing any changes on the form, always keep in mind, we need to click on update. If you're not clicking on the update or if you're not clicking on the save, whatever the changes that you are doing on the form, that is not going to store in the database. Okay. So for that, let me click on update. So now let me open the form. Let me open the student form, guys. Let me ask the question. Let me open the student form. Let me search the student over here. Open the student form. Click on the student form. Now tell me, guys. Now tell me. So what happens if I click student department as MEC? What happens if I click student department as MEC? What happens if I select student department as MEC? What happens if I make student department as MEC? Guys, please respond to me. That is very easy, right? UA actions and UA policies is very easy. In the UA policy, we need to define the condition. In the UA actions, we are going to perform the action. That's it. Now, everyone, please let me know whether you are able to hear me or not. Is my voice audible for you people? Am I audible to everyone? Or no? Please let me know in the Q&A. Everyone can hear, right? Yeah, that's great. That means everyone, please try to respond to the question that I'm asking in the chat. Okay. So my question is, now I have created two UA policies. Now I have created two UA policies. So for each and every UA policy, there are two separate UA policy actions also there. Okay. So what are the conditions like whenever we are going to define the student department as CSC, then automatically it should make the student date of birth as well as date of joining as a mandatory fields. Date of birth as well as date of joining is a mandatory field. But now, now I have created one more particular UI action based on the same thing. But here I have selected the different department. Now I have selected the different department. So when I'm choosing the student department as MEC, when I'm choosing the student department as MEC, then what should happen? Then what should happen here? So those two fields convert into the read only. That's great. Read only mode. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So those two fields that we have, student date of birth as well as student date of joining, will be converted to the read only mode. Okay. Now let me show you the result. So if I keep that as CSC, then student department, sorry, student department as CSC, then automatically student date of birth as well as student date of joining is becoming a mandatory field. So you can check that. Student department, if I'm keeping student department as CSC, then automatically student date of birth as well as date of joining is becoming mandatory fields. Now, if I change that to the MEC, then automatically student department is becoming MEC. Sorry, if I'm making student department as MEC, then automatically student date of birth as well as date of joining is becoming read only fields. I can't enter any value in this particular read only fields. Got it? Got it, everyone? How I'm building UI actions and UI policies? It's very easy, right? That easy, everyone? Please let me know. Is that easy? Everyone, please let me know. So if you are able to understand this, then you are able to understand the data policy also. If you are able to understand this, if you are going to understand data policies also, but while explaining about the import set, right? While I'm explaining about the import set, I'm going to differentiate these two things. So how import set is going to work based on the UI actions and UI policies, how how the import set is going to work if there is any data policy on the table. Okay. Now, as for now, we have applied only UI policies, right? As for now, we have applied only UI policies. So that means whatever the data that are going to be imported in the student table, whatever the data, if I want to import in this particular student table, then there is no restrictions will happen. Whatever the data that is coming from the outside, that is going to store in the table. No one is going to stop whether it is a mandatory field or whether it is a read-only field. Okay, so there is no restrictions. There is no restrictions. Definition for the EU policy. Yeah, I am going to share that. You can take a snap of it. So basically, a rule that applies for the form dynamically changes information on the form itself. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about the data policies. So as for now, we have discussed about the UA policy and action, right? UA policy actions. So we are not covering one more concept here. So we are not going to cover this topic, that is UI actions, guys. That is UI actions, because this does purely comes under the scripting part. So whatever the UI actions that you are going to build, that will comes under the scripting part. Okay, that's why we are not going to work on the UI actions. We are going to deal with UI policies as well as data policies. Whereas coming to the UI policy, the work will be same. Okay, so based on the condition, we are going to apply the configurations, right? It may be a mandatory, it may be hidden, or it may be read only. So the same thing is going to apply for the data policy also. The same thing is going to happen for the data policy also. Same thing is going to happen for the data policy also. But here, you people need to understand the main thing is like whenever we are using UA policies, whenever we are using UA policies, if we are making any field mandatory on the condition, if we are making any field mandatory on the condition, that applies to the form only. That applies to the form only, not to the back end of the table, not to the back end of the table. But whenever we are doing the same thing using data policies, whenever we are doing the same thing using data policies, then it will applies to the form also. Sorry, then it will applies to the database of the table also. Then it will applies to the database of the table also. So whenever we are importing data or whenever we are extracting data, so it will always ask for the conditions. If we are not matching with the conditions, then it won't allow us to enter the data. If we are not matching with the conditions, then it won't allow us to enter the data into the table. So that's why it is very important when we need to use the UA policies and when we need to use the data policies. Okay. So suppose if there is a work on the form itself, then use UA policies. And if there is work on the table, if there is a backend issue that should not happen, if you are thinking that, then you can go for the server side, that is data policies. Okay. So whereas coming to the definition of the data policies, that is very simple here. Data policy is a rule that enforces data consistently by setting fields on the mandatory or read-only. The same operations that you are going to do in the UA policy are going to be done in the data policy also. But here, this acts for the server side, and whatever the things that we are going to do using data policy, that will directly applicable to the table, not to the form. Directly applicable to the table, but it will represent also. It will represent on the form also. It will represent on the form also. Okay. So now one more thing that you people need to know about the data policy here is like we can't find one more action that we do in the UA policies that are hidden. Okay. We can't make any field hidden or visible using data policy. That we can do using UA policy. That we can do using UA policy. Okay. So that is a major difference that you are going to observe whenever you are working on the data policy. Okay. So data policy executes on the server side, but can also run on the UA policy on the client side. So whatever the data policy that we are creating, that may also run on the client side, but it will always runs on the server side. It will always runs on the server side. But if you want to run that particular data policy that you're creating on the client side, we can make that happen. We can make that happen using one checkbox. Use this policy on the client. Okay, using one checkbox like use as UA policy on client. So if we enable this particular checkbox, automatically whatever the data policy that we create, that will also act as a UA policy on the form. Okay. So now let me show you how we are going to create one data policy. Now let me show you how we are going to create one data policy. Let me show the instance once again. Please let me know, guys, everyone are able to see the instance. Working will be same, guys. The working will be same in the both the cases. The working will be same in both the cases, but one is acting on the form, one is acting on the table. One is acting on the form, one is acting on the database of the table. Okay, that is the major difference that you need to know. And one is acting on the client side, one is acting on the client side, one is acting on the server side. So acting on the client side is UA policies, acting on the server side is data policies. So everyone, please let me know, everyone are able to see the screen or not? Everyone are able to see the screen? Please let me know, guys. Yeah, sorry for the interruption, guys. Okay, so let me continue. So everyone are able to see the screen? Everyone are able to see the instance? Please give the thumbs up in the chat box. Send an emoji. That is also fine. That's great. Everyone are able to see the screen. So now let me create one data policy. Now let me create one data policy. So before I'm going to create data policy, let me deactivate the UA policies that we created. Okay. So let me deactivate the UA policies that we created, or let it be, guys. Because we don't have many fields right here. We don't have a lot of fields to perform these activities. That's why I'm thinking that to deactivate, but I can make that happen using this field. Okay. So let me create the same thing. Okay. Let me create the same thing on different field, guys. Let me create the same thing on different field, that is pass out year. Let me create the same thing. So what we have performed by using your policy for these two fields, that is student date of birth and student date of joining. So whenever we are making student department as CSC, then automatically these two fields are becoming mandatory, right? Also, whenever you are making student department as MEC, these two fields are becoming read only. So the same thing is going to apply for the pass out year also. So the same thing is going to apply for the pass out year also. But here I'm going to do with using data policy here. I'm going to do that using data policy. Now let me show you how we are going to create data policy and how that is going to work in the instance. So for that, search for data policy. Search for data policy. You will find data policies option under system policies. You will find data policies module name under system policies application. Click on that. Then after click on the new to create a data policy. Same method, guys. Same method is going to applicable. So here also we need to choose the table, and here also we need to click on the save to apply the condition. Okay. So before, let me choose the table here, that is student table that we are working on. So after mentioning the table, it is allowing us to mention the condition as well. It is allowing us to mention the condition as well. So the condition is student department is CSC. Here guys, here the main things that you need to know. Here the main things that you need to know, that are why we are using data policies, right? So here we have 3 points that are very important, that why we use data policy instead of using UA policies and actions for that. Okay. So whatever the condition and whatever the criteria that you are applying, that you are going to apply on the instance, that will allow an import set also, that will include import set also. That means whenever we are going to upload any data, that will check for the condition, that will check for the condition and check for the actions also, UA policy actions also, sorry, data policy actions also. If that is going to work, then it will allow us to store involve the data into the instance. And whatever the data policy that you are going to create, that will also applicable for the SOAP. That is an integration option, guys. That is also applicable for the SOAP. And you can see one more option that is very clearly mentioned when I'm discussing about the definition of the data policy. That is, we can use this data policy action as a UA policy on the client. We can use this same data policy action as a UA policy action on the client. That means whatever the things that we create, that will also reflect on the form. That will also reflect on the form. Okay. So now let me click on save using context menu. Click on save. Then it will allow me to enter the action for this particular data policy. It will allow for me to mention the action. What is the action that is going to be performed? But here we don't call that as an action. Here we don't call that as an action. We call that as a data policy rules. We will call that as a data policy rules. Whereas coming to the UA policy, we will call that as a UA policy actions. Whereas coming to the UA policy, we will call that as a UA policy actions. Whereas coming to the data policy, we will call that as a data policy rules. We will call that as data policy rules. Okay. So now let me create two roles. Okay, sorry. Let me go with the single role where I'm going to work on the single field, right? That is pass out year. So let me create action for that. Sorry, let me create one role for that. So let me choose the field. Hmm, pass out here is not there because that is in the sections, right? Okay, we can't find that in this particular place. Let me go with the next field, last name. Let me go with the field last name. Okay, so let me go with the field last name. So whenever the student department is been changing to CSC, then last name field should be become mandatory. Then last name field should become mandatory. Click on submit and update the changes in the configuration. Update the changes on the form to see the configurations. Click on update. Now let me create immediately one more data policy to work on the same field. That particular condition should be read only. Okay, that particular condition should be read only. Let me click on new. So select the table, that is student. Okay, so now the condition is student department is MEC. Previously it was CSC, then I made that particular last name field should be a mandatory. Now I will make that particular field should be read only. Okay, so here I'm going to specify data policy rule. Click on new, then select the field, that is last name. Now I need to specify the action, that is read only true. Click on submit. Everything is done. So whatever the configurations that we are doing on the form, we need to update or save that. Click on update or save from the context menu. That is also fine. So now we have done with creation of two data policies. Now we have done with creation of two data policies. One is for making field mandatory. One is for making field read only. But here the condition is different. Okay. Here the condition is different. So now let me go to the student form and check whether it is working same like a UA policy or not. Whether it is working same like a UA policy or not. Okay. For that, let me go to the student. Click on the student form. Now, if I choose department, as CSC, you can see UA action, sorry, UA policy is also working. By that, we are going to see student date of birth is being changed as mandatory and student date of joining is also changed to mandatory. And even data policy rule also is working. Data policy rule also is working. You can see last name is became mandatory now. Last name is became mandatory now. So now let me change the value from CSC to MEC. You can see everything is working. UA action is working. Data policy, sorry, UA policy is working. Data policy is also working perfectly fine. But the major difference that you are going to observe, that is whenever we are pushing any data into the system, if there is a UA actions or UA policies on the form, that won't interrupt with that particular data, that will allow to enter the data into the system. But whereas coming to the data policy, it will enforce the data and it will ask for the condition. If that is not matching, it won't allow that data to enter into the instance. Okay. Also, whereas coming to the data policies, it will also work for the SOAP integrations. It will also works for the SOAP integrations, and also it will also works for the client side. That means it can act as a UA policy. It can act as a UA policy by default. Okay. So these are the additional advantages if we use data policy. But the one thing that we can't do using data policy is like we can't hide any field. The one thing that we can't do using data policy is like we can't hide any field using the actions that are provided in the data policy. That's it. Okay. So got the clarity, guys? Everyone, please let me know. What is the meaning of SOAP? Actually, that is one of the integration tool that is already there in the instance itself. So if you are going above the administrator, we can start learning on that. Okay. So basically, we have REST and SOAP for the integration in the instance itself. Suppose if you want to include any application that is a third-party application into the instance, we can directly use REST or SOAP. We can directly integrate with that application. Okay. Which one is better to use, UA policy or data policy? That depends on the situation. That depends on the situation. Okay. Can you show how to hide field, sir? Actually, that is only working for the UA action. Sorry, UA policy. That is only work for the UA policy. We will make the changes. Okay. So we already created that one, right? So we already created UA actions. Let me go for the UA policies. So let me go for the UA policy. Now I'm going for the UA policy that we created previously. Whenever the student department is make, right? Whenever the student department is make. So I'm going to change the configurations here. I'm going to change the configuration instead of making this particular read only. So I'm making this false or leave alone. Leave alone is also fine, or false also fine. Both both are same things. Okay. So I am going to hide the fields. For that, let me select visible as false. Visible as false. Click on save edit. Select the visible as false and click on save edit. Now let me update the configurations. Now what happens, guys? Now what happens if I change my department as make? Then both the fields will disappear. Both the fields will disappear from my form. Now if I make my department as CSC, then I can get both the fields once again. So what I did, I went to the UA policy that I created and I have made some changes on the UA policy actions that we created. Instead of giving read only, what I did, I have used option hidden. So that means we need to make the false of the case for the visible. If visible is false, then automatically that field will be hidden. So that is going to happen whenever I'm choosing student department as make. Okay. Got the clarity, guys, everyone? Got the clarity, guys, everyone? Everyone, please let me know. Got the clarity? Easy, right? Can we go with the next one? That is field dependency. Can we go with the next topic? That is field dependency. This also comes under data configuration. This also comes under data configuration. So can you explain the difference between data policy and UA policy? Yeah. So first thing, UA policy is going to work on the client side. The first difference is UA policy is going to work on the client side. Whereas coming to the data policy is going to work on the server side. Data policy is going to work on the server side. Okay. And whereas coming to the UA policy, we can perform three different configurations. We can perform three different configurations that are mandatory, read only, hidden. But whereas coming to the data policy, we can perform only two conditions that are mandatory, read only. And whereas coming to the UA policy, we can whatever the configurations that are applicable, whatever the configurations that are applying from UA policy, that will only act for the form, not for the database of the table, not for the backend things. It will act on the form itself. It will act on the form itself. But whereas coming to the data policy, if you apply anything on the table, it will act on the database also. If it will act on the database also, it will restrict the import set. It will also restrict the SOAP. It will also restrict the client side also. Okay. And whereas coming to the data policy, it can be act as a client side also. Whereas coming to the data policy, it can be act as a client side also. These are the differences that you need to know. Yeah, Arun, whereas coming to the UA actions, that is completely on the scripting side. So if you learn scripting, then we can go for the script, that part of actions, UA actions. Okay. As for now in the admin, that is not important. Okay. So we have different courses in the service now. Whereas coming to the admin, that part is not that important. So if you go for the scripting part, we will learn a lot of things in the scripting. So in the UA policy also, we can write the script. In the data policy also, we can write the script. Okay. There are a lot of things we can discuss if you go for the scripting part. But as for the structure, we are going to deal with the admin. So let me complete the admin. Okay. So everyone are ready with the next concept that we are going to discuss? Guys, everyone are ready? Please let me know. Yeah, so whereas coming to the UA actions, that is very easy, guys. Okay, UA actions also very easy, but whereas coming to the UA actions, so whatever the things that you are going to learn in the UA actions are, so here you can see the button, right? Here you can see the button submit. So this button is one of the UA action. This button is one of the UA action. After clicking on this, what is happening? It is saving the record into the student table. This is one action, right? This is one action. And if you click on new, if it is opening the new form of the student table. This is also one action. So this how we are going to create actions using UA actions. So that is the main thing that is only performed based on the script. That is only performed based on the script. Without script, we can't do anything in the UA actions. So as coming to the UA policy and data policy, we can do some things without coding also. That was explained very completely. Okay. So can we go with the next one, guys? Can we go with the next one? Field dependency. Okay. Are everyone ready? Please give the thumbs up, emoji. Please let me know, guys. Everyone are ready for discussing one more topic, that is field dependency. Please, guys, please try to answer that in the Q&A so that I can move forward. Okay. Everyone, please say yes in the chat box. Say yes in the chat box so that I can continue with the next one. Yeah, definitely. I got few responses now that that are good. Okay. So let me go with the next one, that is field dependency, guys. What is this field dependency and how this field dependency is going to work? Okay. So whereas coming to this field dependency, basically we create this particular field dependency to control one field values. To control one field values based on the another field. Based on the another field. Okay. Suppose I have one field. I have one field in that there are multiple list of things we can pick. There are multiple list of things I can pick. So based on the choice that I'm going to pick, it should show the limited choices in the next field. It should show the limited choices in the next field. So that means one field is going to control the other field choices. One field choice is going to control the other field choices, how that particular choice should be represented. Okay. So for that, I'm going to show the example first. For that, I'm going to show the example. Let me share the instance once again. This is the instance. I think everyone can see the instance. Everyone are able to see the instance? Please let me know. Yeah. So let me show how this particular field dependency is going to work for the standard tables. Then I will pick one scenario and we will implement that in the custom table. Okay. So first let me go to the incident table to show this how that is going to work. Incident, create new, click on this incident to create a new record. So here everyone, please observe here on the screen. So we have two fields. One is category, one is subcategory. So whereas coming to the category, if I select any one of the category, if I select any one of the category from this particular choice, if I select any one of the category from this particular choice, if I'm going to select inquiry help, then I can see a limited options. I can see a limited options that are going to controlled by the category in the subcategory. So now if I click on the subcategory, I can see only three choices, guys. I can see only three choices. These are controlled by inquiry help. These are controlled by inquiry help. I can pick choice from these three only. I can pick choice from these three only. Okay. Suppose if I change this one to hardware, if I change my category to hardware, then if I click on this, if I click on subcategory, then the values, the choices that is been displayed for the hardware that are completely different, guys. That are completely different from the inquiry help. And here you can see we have CPU, disk, keyboard, memory, monitor, mouse. These are the things that we can pick from the subcategory. So these how one field is going to control other field choices. One field is going to control other field choices. So how we are going to do that? Okay, how this basically works and where we can directly implement these scenarios in the real time. Okay, for that let me pick a sample example to implement that in the student table. So for student table, what I can choose? Yeah, so for student table, I can pick the state and district also, right? I can pick state as well as district also. So depending on the state, if I pick state as Telangana, then it should display the districts that are belongs to that particular state. It should display the districts that are belongs to that particular state, or it should show the cities in that particular states. It should display the cities in that particular states. Okay, or if I'm going to choose Andhra, if I'm going to choose Andhra Pradesh, then it should display the list of records, sorry, list of choices from the cities that should come from the Andhra Pradesh. That should come from the Andhra Pradesh. So for that kind of a case, I'm going to create field dependency. Okay, so let me create that. So to create field dependency, first I need to create the fields. To create field dependency, first I need to create the fields, right? So we are going to create two fields here. One is state, one is district. So either I create district or cities. So both are going to work as a dependent fields. Both are going to work as a dependent fields. So based on the state that I'm going to pick, that is going to display the districts or states. Okay, sorry, cities. So let me do that. So before that, now you people need to help me how I can create the field. You people need to help me how I can create a field. I need to create state field. Where I need to go and how I can create that. I need to create a state field. How I can do that, guys? Please let me know. How I can do that. So I want to create a field. So how can I do that? Specifically, I'm asking for the choice. What is the best way I can go for and I can use a choice. I can create a choice field. Form layout, form builder, form layout, form builder, form designer. Okay. So I got the answers. Let me pick one of these and create the fields. Okay. So let me create fields. For that, I need to go to the all. First, I need to open the form of the student. So let me open the student form. Open the student form. Then go to the context menu and click on config. Select form builder. I'm going to use the form builder, guys. Okay. So let me create fields using form builder. So whatever the states that I want to mention as the choices, please let me know in the chat box. So let me create the field. Click on the add the field. Let me mention this as states. This is the field name and here choice as the data type because I'm going to add multiple choices over here. And whereas coming to the field dependency, these only works for the choice fields. These particular field dependency only works for the choice fields. Okay, click on add. So now the field is created, that is states. Let me drag this one to the form. Okay, now I have dragged that part to the form. You can see the field properties right side. Now let me add the choices directly. Let me add the choices directly using edit. Okay, so let me click on add the choice. So now you people need to mention, guys, for mention one state and also two districts in that state. Okay, mention one state and mention two districts in that state. Everyone, mention one state and two districts in that state, so that I will pick that states as well as I will pick that districts here. So for that, we are going to work on the field dependency. So now let me write states here, Telangana. Okay, so I'm mentioning few states here: Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and let me pick one more, that is Tamil Nadu. Okay, so I have selected three different states here. Okay, I have selected three different states here. Let me click on apply, so that that particular choices that I have created will be added to the field that I created. Okay, now let me create one more field also. In that I'm going to add, and in that I'm going to add districts. Okay, so let me define the name for that field, districts. I'm mentioning that short form, guys, districts over here, and mention the data type as choice. Mention the data type as choice. Pick that, then click off the add. On the add, click on done to drag that one to the form. Now let me drag this particular field that I have created to the form. Okay, so now let me add the choices also. Let me add the choices also. So for Telangana, I'm going to add two choices. For Andhra, I'm going to add two choices. For Tamil Nadu, I'm going to add two choices. Let me click on edit and mention the choices over here. For Telangana, I'm mentioning Yadadri and Hyderabad. And for Andhra, I'm mentioning Guntur and Vizag. Okay. So for Tamil Nadu, I'm mentioning Chennai and Erode. Okay. So for each and every state, I have picked two places over here. I have picked two places over here. So when I am selecting that particular state, it should display this particular two districts. Okay. So it should display this particular two districts. So now let me create these two fields and let me save this to show that on the form first. Let me click on save. So now if I open the form, guys, let me refresh the page to see the changes that I have made from using form builder. So now you can see I have two fields that are state and districts. So if I pick any state, it is not displaying the states, it is not displaying the districts under that particular state. It is not displaying the districts under that particular states. It is displaying all the districts. It is displaying all the districts as for now. So as for our criteria, what it should display when I'm picking the state as Telangana, then it should give the districts that are belongs to that particular state. Okay. So now for that, we are going to implement field dependency. For that, we are going to implement field dependency. Here, we will call these particular states as controlling field and particular districts as dependent fields, guys. Okay, because based on the state only, the particular districts are going to appear, right? That's why I'm calling districts as dependent field and states as controlling field. Okay. So to create field dependency, we need to always click on the dependent field. We need to always click on the dependent field, right click on the dependent field. Then after go for the config dictionary. Then after go for the config dictionary. Always starts with the dependent field. That is in this case districts or the dependent field. Okay. So now let me right click on that. Here, after opening the config dictionary, you will see field read only, manage display. These things we can do. Okay, these things we can do. Otherwise, we can also add choices from the config dictionary. So now what I'm doing is like in the related links, we have one link with the name advanced view. We have one link with the name advanced view. So before clicking on that, you can see we have only two sections. Before clicking on that, you can see we have only two sections. One is for choice list specification and one is for default value. And lastly, you can go for the choices also. We don't have multiple choices over here. We have only label, value, language, sequence, and inactive updated. There is no thing to be specified for the dependent values. There is no specific column where I can define the dependent values. Okay. So to do that, we need to go to the advanced view. To do that, we need to go to the advanced view. Click on the advanced view in the related links. After clicking on the advanced view, it will go to the advanced view of the config dictionary of this particular field. Now I'm in the advanced view of the config dictionary. Okay, here I can see four sections. In that particularly second section is for dependent field. In that particularly the second section is for dependent field. Let me click on this button to choose this particular field as a dependent field. To choose this particular field should be used as a dependent field. So let me click on use dependent field. Then after from this, I can directly choose the dependent field. That means which field is going to control the districts. Which field is going to control the districts. For that, let me go for the dependent on the field. So that means we are going to specify the controlling field over here. That means we are going to specify the controlling field over here. Click on this. Here the controlling field is states, right? Here the controlling field is states. That means depends on the states only we are going to identify the districts. We already mentioned that states is a controlling field and districts is a dependent field. So based on the states that we pick, we are going to see the districts. That's why we are going to mention here for these districts, states is the controlling field. For these districts, states is the controlling field. After specifying that, guys, you can see in the same sections, in the same related sections in the choices, previously we are going to see up to updated only. But now we have an extra option that is dependent value. So what we need to enter over here? So let me tell you. So first let me update this. So now I have mentioned that these particular districts should be act as a dependent fields for the states, right? So now let me choose state as Telangana. Then it is not showing any value. Because I haven't specified anything. Like when I'm picking Telangana, then this particular values should only show. I'm not specified that. That's why it is not showing any value now. So for that, what we need to do is like we need to mention the API name of the choices that we have in the states. So for that, I'm going to right click on the states, config dictionary, leave it. Right click on the states, go to the config dictionary. So from here, we are going to get the values of the choices. Copy these values. And whereas coming to the districts, we need to mention the dependent values over there, right, in the choices. So there I need to mention the states. So for Yadadri, I need to mention the dependent value as Telangana. So let me mention that. Telangana done. So for Chennai, it is Tamil Nadu, right? Let me mention that it is Tamil Nadu and save it. And for Vizag, it is AP, Andhra Pradesh. Let me select that. Why I am choosing these values only because if you go with the label name, it won't directly validate the exact configurations. It won't directly validate the exact configurations. Okay. So try to always pick the values and mention that in the dependent values. Mention that in the dependent values. Okay. Let me move that for all the things. For Erode, that is Tamil Nadu. For last Hyderabad, that is Telangana. Okay. After specifying the dependent values, if we click on update, then it will allow exactly what we have assumed. It will works as same thing that we have assumed. Okay. So now let me show you guys. So if I go for the state, Telangana, then you can see in the districts, I can see only Hyderabad and Yadadri. I can pick a choice from these two only. I can pick a choice from these two particular choices only. Okay. Now, if I go for Tamil Nadu, then I can see only two things. One is Chennai, one more is Erode. And if I go for the different state, that is Andhra Pradesh, then I can see two more things, that is Guntur and Vizag. Okay. That is two more things, that is Guntur and Vizag. So these how we are going to identify and do the field dependency. Got it, guys? Is that clear for everyone? Is that clear for everyone? Is that clear for everyone? Please let me know. Is that clear for everyone? Please let me know. Any doubts in this, guys? How to go to dependent value? So to go to the dependent value, we need to go for the advanced view. We need to go to the advanced view. Okay. So guys, here itself, I need to tell some more things on the choice. Here itself, I need to tell some more things on the choice that are very important. So whenever we are creating choice, right? Whenever we are creating any field using choice as a data type, whenever we are creating any field using a choice as a data type, so we have some things to be discussed. We have some things to be discussed. Let me do that. Let me create one random choice field here. Let me create one more random choice field here. I'm going to go with the form builder only now also. I'm just creating one more choice field to show something, guys. To show something. Test choice. And specify the choice as data type. So whenever you are working on the choice data type, this is very important. This is very important. That's why. So let me drag this. Okay, let me save it. If I go to the form and refresh that, I will see the changes, right? So now, guys, now everyone see the screen very carefully because this is very important. Now in the test choices, there are no choices, right? There are no choices directly. Please, it is displaying the value as none. It is displaying the value as none. So whereas coming to the choice types. So if I click on the properties of the choice, you can see if I go for the edit. So let me add random choices here like 1, 2, 3. I'm going to add these three choices. So if I'm going to add these three choices that are going to display in the form, But here we have three things that to be discussed that are choose as choice. Choose choices as drop down with none, and suggestions. So what are these three things? What are these three things? So whereas coming to the drop down. So everyone, please listen once again. So if you choose drop down directly, what happens is like whatever the values that we are giving here, whatever the values that we are giving here. that will automatically starting with the first value. That will automatically starts with the first value. It won't give none. It won't give none to select the value. So previously, if you see guys here, it is started with none. Then after I can pick state as Telangana and I can go for the next things. Okay. So if I'm giving this particular choose as drop down, then directly the Telangana will be as the first value. Telangana will be act as a first value. Instead of none, Telangana will be acting as a first value. Suppose if you want to display none, then go with this. If you want to display none, then go with this. That means before your value, if before your choices, there will be one particular thing that is none that will be displayed over here. For your choices that will display none, that will better, and that will also very useful, because instead of directly picking one random value, if there is no value also, that is also fine, right? Instead of picking a random value, there is no value also, that is fine. Okay. So whereas coming to the third one, that is suggestions. Whereas coming to the third one, suggestions, this is the best choice reference that you can pick, guys. Best choice type reference that you can pick as suggestions, because whenever if you go for these choices, if you go for the choices, so if you use these particular choices as suggestions, what happens? Please observe the screen. Let me apply this and tell you. Let me save the seniors. So let me go back to the form and refresh the page. So now for the specific test choice field that I have created, there is no drop down. There is no drop down, but beside the field, we have one symbol. Beside the field, one suggestion symbol has been created. Suppose if you want to pick the choices that are there in the field, we can click on this globe, we can click on this bulb, and we can pick the choice. We can pick the choice that are there in that. Okay, that are there in that. But if you don't want to choose that choice, but rather than that, I want to create a new value and I want to enter that value, and that should be saved in the record. Then I can go with the suggestions. Now, if I enter the 5 as my value also, it will accept. If I enter the value as 5 also, it will accept. It will accept the value. So let me save the record now. You can see, right? My record got saved. I'm not picking any value from the suggestions. I'm not picking any value from the choices. I have directly typed my own value over there and I have saved the choice. So basically, suggestions is used for such kind of scenarios like suppose if student is filling the department. Okay, so we have student department as our one field, right? Suppose student is filling the department, so we will give these suggestions. Okay, so these are the standard courses that are given to the students. In this, you are already part of this course, you can directly pick that course. Rather than you can directly type your course name. If that course name is not available in the choices. So in this case, we can directly use that suggestions options. Okay, instead of using drop down, we can directly go with the suggestions that allows us to mention few more values rather than the values from the choice. Okay, so it won't restrict the users to go with the standard values. Okay, that is the use of different choice types, guys. So everything is clear now. Once again, select state field and any one of your choice, but don't click on the district field. It shows choices. Ramesh, I didn't get that exactly what you want to tell. So let me click on the states and pick the state. Then if I go for the districts, then it will show the districts that are under that particular state. Okay, you can see that, right? If I'm selecting my state as Telangana, then it is showing the districts under that state. From that, I can pick my own district. Otherwise, If I'm selecting my state as Andhra Pradesh, then it will display the districts under the particular state, and I can select my district from this also. Okay, this how this field dependency is going to work. This how the field dependency is going to work. Guys, any more doubts? It is displaying that. When we create the UA policy and data policy for the same field, which will trigger first? Okay, so this is one of the best question. This is the one of the best question that Supriya asked. So what if we create UA policy, and what if we create data policy for the same set of permissions? Is there any errors that are going to occur? There are no errors going to occur. We can create that same operation in the data policy also. Whatever the condition that you keep in the UA policy, that can be directly kept in the data policy, and whatever the action that is going to be performed in the UA policy, you can keep the same thing in the data policy also. There will be no interruption, because one is working on the form, one is working on the table database. So can you choose choice types? Can you explain about choice types? Okay. So whereas coming to the choice types, we have three types. Okay. We have three types. Let me go from here itself. That may be difficult for you to understand from the form design. Sorry, form builder. So if I go for the config dictionary, right? If I go for the config dictionary, these are the choice list specifications. These are the choice list specifications. There are three types. There are three types. One is suggestions. Basically, if you choose choice list specification as suggestions, then it will give extra space for us to enter the data. So whatever the choices that we want to keep, we can keep. That will be available in the suggestions. That will be available in the suggestions. But rather than that, if you want to add any additional things, okay, if you want to add any additional things, we can add that in the suggestions. We can add that in the suggestions. But that is not possible if we go with the drop down with none or drop down without none. Okay, that is not possible if you go for drop down with none or drop down without none. So basically that is very clearly mentioned how these two are working. So if you pick drop down with none, then defaultly the value will set as none. If you pick drop down without none, then it will pick one of the specific choice as a default value. It will choose any one of the random specific choice as a default value if you pick drop down without none. Okay, got the clarity? Got the clarity, everyone? What if the condition for the field in data policy is different, and what if the which one will execute first? Also, basically UA policies one runs first. So whereas command is the running first, which one will run first? So UA policies will always run first. It will execute fast. Then after, rest of the will run. Okay. So guys, we have 15 more minutes time. If you have any kind of doubts in the today's session, or if you are facing any errors that are you are doing in the now learning or whatever the thing that you are doing. So if you have any difficulties, please let me know so that I'm going to clarify. Sir, I have completed modules. So what should I do next to get the voucher? Navya, so we have assigned with the three modules, right? One is Welcome to ServiceNow, one is now Welcome to ServiceNow Micro Certification. The last one is Fundamentals on Demand course. So if you complete the Fundamentals on Demand course, after completion of the course, you will see one extra thing is been enabled for you. Okay, that is the voucher. You can claim that voucher and you can use that voucher. So we will explain how you are going to use that voucher and how we can go for the exam also. Okay. So good evening, sir. After completion of the class, could you please tell me how to use VTP in micro certification? So, name is Chandana. Chandana, if you are working on the VTP task, make sure that the previous task is also done in the same instance. So you are requesting for one lab, right? You are requesting for one lab. So that task also should be done in the same requested lab, because the previous task is also involved with that, because the previous task that you are going to perform, that is very required to complete the VTB task. So we are going to make one list. Okay, one list as favorite. We are going to use that list to call in the VTB. Okay. So, so how to add a new report in dashboard? Just open the report. Open the report. Sonali, open the report. Save that report. After saving that report, you will see one extra button on that particular report, that is add to dashboard. Add to dashboard. Click on that button. Then it will show true drop down options. That is, one is add to new dashboard, one is add to existing dashboard. So if you're already created with the dashboard, then you can go with the second option and you can search for the dashboard. Sir, I have completed the modules. What should I do next? I have answered that. Hmm. There is no last date for the climbing the voucher. You can climb it at any time. Okay, that depends on you. When you're willing to write the exam, you can climb the voucher and you can apply for that exam. Okay, for the completion of the course only, that is very mandatory for everyone to complete the course. More doubts, guys? Any more doubts? Sir, I didn't get any report in the search bar. Sonali, don't search for the report. Okay. So if you are performing any task, okay, if you are performing any task in the Now Learning or Welcome to ServiceNow, that will help us to directly create a report from the table itself. If you go for the list, right? If you go for the list, if you go for any column options, you will see pie chart, bar chart directly. So from that, we are going to create the reports. If you want to create report from the all, then search for reports. You will find reports module. Okay, you will find reports module. In that, you need to select for users and you need to click on the users. Then you can start working on the report. There is no that kind of a difference. Shake, that won't happen. Okay. Sir, select state Telangana. Then district should choose only for the only Yadadri and Hyderabad, but showing due to it's giving the value. Yeah, for me, it's working fine, right, Ramesh? If you see, guys, if I'm picking my state as Telangana, then it is displaying the districts that are coming under that only, Yadadri and Hyderabad. You can see that. I can select that only. I can't directly select districts that are coming from Tamil Nadu. If I keep this as none, then I can see none as my districts, because I have selected this particular field should work on the states. Okay. That means we need to mandatory pick one state, then only we can pick district. Okay. So any more doubts, guys? Yeah, Chandana, that is the thing that I'm telling, right? In the previous task, you are going to create one list. Okay. So what you are going to do is like you are going to go to the incidents, okay, that are under service desk application. Then you are going to apply one filter and making that filter list as a favorite and naming that as my incidents. Naming that as my incidents. That my incidents records are going to come to the VTP. So if you are performing that task in the previous instance, then make sure that you need to do the same task in the new instance. Or if you are doing that in the admin, please check that you need to do that in the platform user. Okay. We will let you know, Bhavna. So everyone, that's all for the day. I think we will meet you on Monday because there is no particular thing on Saturday and Sunday. So there is a self-based learning, right? So you people need to complete these three courses compulsory. Okay. One is Welcome to ServiceNow, one is Micro Certification, then after Fundamentals on Demand course. So if you have any kind of doubts, please try to reach out to me in the Telegram. Okay. So even though if you want to know me better, so you can directly contact me in the LinkedIn also. Okay. I'm going to share my LinkedIn profile. If you want to contact me directly, you can contact me. So everyone, thank you all for joining in the session and bye everyone. Have a nice day. We will meet you on the Monday. Okay. With a different concept. So everyone, please try to attend the classes and try to complete the courses also. Okay. So bye everyone. Have a nice day.